Does 6.2 become moot? Which is our second public hearing for the
Not
night.
necessarily, no. I mean, no.
Okay.
We could
All
proceed
right,
with that
so
presentation.
we'll move to the second public hearing, which is about vacating a portion of Shellmound Street. And so I assume you're up for the staff report.
I am, thank you.
Okay.
I don't know if they don't approve the motion to read by title only.
Just a moment to set up. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. What you have before you is a resolution for vacation of a portion of Shellmound Street. The staff recommendation is to adopt the resolution attached to your staff report to vacate that portion of Shellmound Street pursuant to the provisions of the Streets and Highways Code. The vacation would be subject to the design, construction, dedication, and acceptance by the city of the new Shellmound Street alignment. What I'll do is briefly toggle back here and show you the portion of Shellmound Street that we're talking about. Excuse me. So here, this shows the current alignment of Shellmound Street. These are the railroad tracks at the top of the page here, and north is this way. And so this is the portion of Shellmound Street that we're talking about. And
Excuse me, I think it's not on.
No.
That's fine. I'll just use this. And this map shows where Shellmound would be realigned. The procedure for abandoning a street requires that the city council find that the abandonment would be consistent with the general plan. The government code also provides that the planning commission must first make a recommendation to the city council as to consistency of those actions with the general plan. Thereafter, the city council would adopt a resolution finding that abandonment and vacation of the existing Shellmound right-of-way and acceptance of the new dedication would be consistent with the general plan. Sorry, that was that was an old slide that shouldn't have been in there. As for the the property exchange agreement and the streets improvement agreement, which were attachments to the development agreement but could be still brought separately to the city council for your consideration. Those agreements provide for the implementation of the tentative map, which will be considered and to be approved by the city council, by the planning commission. Those agreements would require City Center to grant the city an irrevocable offer to dedicate the public market streets. Thank you. As a condition of the tentative map approval, and those public market streets would be the realigned Shellmound, 62nd and 63rd streets, and Market Drive. The streets improvement, pursuant to the streets and improvement agreement, City Center will design and construct the street improvements pursuant to the tentative map and its related conditions of approval to the satisfaction of the city engineer. Thereafter, the city would accept the offer of dedication, and only at that point would the city be obligated to transfer title of the current Shellmound Street to City Center to allow them to to transfer the title. In terms of the general plan consistency, the streets exchange improvement, the exchange agreement, property exchange agreement, and the streets improvement agreement effectuate the abandonment and vacation of the current Shellmound Street, along with the dedication, design, and improvement and acceptance of the new Marketplace streets, the realigned Shellmound Street, 62nd, 63rd Street, and Market Drive. All of that, the realigned Shellmound Street and the new 62nd, 63rd Streets and Market Drive are consistent with the transportation element in the general plan. Figure 3.1 of the general plan shows those new streets there. So the staff recommendation is that the realigned Shellmound Street and the addition of these new city streets would be consistent with those provisions of the general plan. In terms of the vacation procedure, the Streets and Highways Code provides that the City Council adopt a resolution stating facts under which the summary vacation is made. Those facts are listed here in the bullet points and are in your staff report as well. Namely, that the vacation would be superseded by a realigned Shellmound Street. The exchange agreement would grant the city an irrevocable offer to dedicate, including the Shellmound realignment. The Streets Improvement Agreement would require a city center to design and construct the streets in accordance with a tentative map and the conditions of approval. The city would accept the dedication after the construction is complete to the satisfaction of the city engineer, and only at that point would acceptance of the new Shellmound Street is the city obligated to transfer title to the current Shellmound Street. In addition, the resolution provides for a temporary bike and ped easement across Parcel A. That's needed to it's needed to reserve the reservation of the easement is necessary in order to maintain access across the new Shellmound Street realignment. As I mentioned, the Planning Commission considered this item as part of their deliberations on January 25th. They were able to make the findings of consistency with the general plan and recommended that the City Council adopt the ordinance vacating Shellmound Street. The staff recommendation is that you take public testimony on this item and then you adopt the proposed resolution. That's the conclusion of my report.
Could we ask a clarifying question?
Yes. That's my usual procedure.
Is the if we take this action, do you see any legal downsides in this?
No, I mean, as I've said here, the title to transfer Shellmound Street only happens at the very end of the process. So before we get to that last bullet point there, all of those other bullet points, all those other conditions have to be met. What's important is that the improvements that City Center would be required to build, to construct and build regarding the realigned Shellmound Street would have to be done to the satisfaction of the city engineer. So that's the ultimate check that the city has, that the realigned street is up to our specifications and is consistent with the tentative map that will be approved.
I guess if we approve this, in effect, what we're saying is that we like the layout and we would in effect be saying that the project as envisioned with the streets where they are is a good idea no matter who owns them going forward.
Sure. I mean, the idea is that you're allowing, you are saying that, you're allowing for the realigned Shellmound Street, by allowing for the realigned Shellmound Street to occur, you are allowing for the improvements that will be constructed, pursuant to the tentative map, and that will also certainly allow for the parcel B to be constructed adjacent to the railroad tracks.
Okay.
Any other
I have
questions?
But the part of what I'm thinking about here is that actually the recommendation from the Planning Commission with regard to the realignment of the street is within the context of the development agreement. So the public benefits that were part of that agreement that we now do not have in place, right, are one of the things that they used when they were evaluating this, right? It was not separate
Sure.
from the development agreement.
That's true, but they still had to find, in finding consistency with the general plan as part of the development agreement. They were also finding consistency with the general plan as part of the new streets that would be created and the realigned Shellmound Street. So while there was no separate item brought before the Planning Commission as to the realigned Shellmound Street as we're considering here, the part of the idea of asking the City Planning Commission for general plan consistency was also to include, that finding was intended to also include general plan consistency as to the realigned Shellmound Street as well.
But general plan consistency isn't just about do the maps match.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
Right.
it's not just
Right?
not
It's
just
about our
that.
values and our policies behind it. And the other thing that when I'm looking at this, to create the new Shellmound Street and create Parcel B, that again, I'm going to say this confers a tremendous benefit upon the developer, and the developer does not look at Parcel B in isolation. When the developer goes for financing, when the developer looks at, in fact, that's the goal of the PUD, is to imagine it all together, that we too, as a city council, should be imagining this all together and seeing the ways that this, right, should yield other benefits, not just a bend in the road, right, but other benefits should be conferred upon the city by taking this action. If we strip it away from any kind of negotiation or development agreements, then it's a bend in the road without those other elements. And so that's what, looking at this, right, we're both looking at it separately, but again, I'm going to say the Planning Commission did not look at this separately. They looked at it within a context. Now looking at this, right, and thinking about whether or not this confers a real public benefit, it might have in the context of the development agreement when we had some agreements on affordability on site, but what does it confer to us now? Circulation, is that enough of a public benefit for this item?
Is there any other questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing. All right. Public hearing is now open. Come on forward if you wish to speak.
What button do I push? Okay, I got to say I agree with what Councilmember Asher just said. What this really is a bend in the street. Now, if you look at the plan here, is this on?
No.
Is this mic on?
Yes.
Okay. If you look at the plan here, so the way the street now it travels like this, and what we're proposing here is to make it travel like that. So the absurdity of this is, if we listen to the staff, the street traveling like that is not in the public interest, but the street traveling like this is in the public interest. It's absurd. It's patently absurd. This is a bend in the road. There's no circulation is not improved. It's turning of your steering wheel 1, 2, 3 times with the new configuration, and turning of your steering wheel 1, 2 times with the existing configuration. There's no circulation improvement, and it's a tautology to attach this to this development project that we just said not at this time to. So the street grid that we're talking about, all that kind of increased circulation is not attached to this anymore. And so this really is a bend in the road. It doesn't improve circulation. And now I just wanted to deviate and change the subject just for a moment. I wanted to say thank you to the council for the vote you just made previous. I've lived here for 35 years. I have never seen Emeryville City Council say no to the first iteration of a development before, ever. I've never seen that. This was an historic vote, and I'm in the construction trade, and there's an adage: if you're getting every single bid that you put out, you're bidding too low. And Emeryville, up till tonight, has gotten every bid, essentially, if you look at it that way. And I'm really happy to see that we're growing up here now. So we've been selling ourselves too low, and tonight we've broken that bad tradition, and we're supposed to, in the construction industry, you're supposed to get about 75% of the projects you bid. In Emeryville, up till tonight, we've gotten 100%. So that means we're bidding too low. Tonight, we didn't do that. We changed the formula, the paradigm. I'm just really happy about that. I think this was a really, really good thing that you did here tonight. I just want to say thank you for that.
Any other public comment on this item? Public hearing's closed. Council discussion?
I'd like to talk about the merits of adopting this street. This developer may or may not choose to build out the design. He's got permission to build parcel C that the street bends around. The basic design, whether this developer goes forward or not, is a good design for all the reasons that Ruth said. It has great improved circulation. It's broken up the super block. It allows for a building right up against the track that could buffer sound, and it's a better urban use. Say this builder isn't interested in this going forward. If we adopt this tonight, we're creating value to the site that somebody else can use. And it's also saying to future developers, look, this council sees value in a certain alignment and quality, and I think we should not think that we're going to, get some edge by not doing this over this current developer. Well, I think it's totally neutral, but it creates value to the site for any future use of it.
Well, but then your votes are kind of inconsistent, right? Because if you wanted this, then you should have gotten all the other benefits that were in the development agreement. The point is that I'm making is that this street is valuable to this developer, right? That it has a tremendous value to the developer, and that we weren't realizing enough public benefit. If you vote to just do this, right, you do it without any of the agreements. You don't get the on-site affordable, you don't get anything else. What I'm hoping that we can do finally here in Emeryville is be every bit as smart as a developer. I would like to do that. I would like to come here and say that this adds tremendous value to this site, that double-facing retail that we don't even know if it's going to be locally serving, that we don't even know if it's going to be the things that we've talked about, like a co-op or the other things that we say are important to us, right? That we say to the developer that in this process of negotiation, that what we saw in that DA was not good enough, right? And I don't think that, just like Diane said, that's not a way to say that we do not want any development in town. That is not what we're saying. We're not saying that we don't ever want Shellmound Street to be like this, but that we have to be smart about this, right? That you don't, to vote on this now would be to just give this to the developer without getting any kind of public benefit in return. And we just talked about an agreement in which we decided that there wasn't enough public benefit even with this street.
Well, I think a development agreement adds a lot of security to building anything.
It does.
And the alignment of the street means a lot less than a development agreement.
It does.
And I think we want this, this developer may not be interested in this site, but if this site will be of value to someone going forward, perhaps a little more intensively developed, maybe not. Maybe.
Well, but then that person can come to us. That person can come to us.
Mayor
This is
Atkins?
about what's in front of us right now.
All
And
right.
so when I'm looking at this, right, the vote that we just took around Shellmound, right, is whether or not, and this, looking at it, even looking at the title on the last flyer, is talking about a street exchange. The city is giving something. If we just give something and don't have a development agreement on the other end of it, that's it. Right? We just gave it away for nothing. And also I want to say that the development agreement in Emeryville, I've been looking at this, and in other cities it doesn't work this way. It's so blind and weird, right? So the development agreement gets a small preview in front of the Planning Commission, and then it shows up here. Right? There's not a lot of time in between those two things, right? And then also, we don't have time to have any kind of meaningful discussion, so that it doesn't feel like a negotiation. It feels like an up or down vote, right? And so I would strongly suggest that to do this, Scott, undermines your earlier vote, right? That
You've made your point.
that you're giving away what we just talked about, we see as valuable.
All right.
Mayor Atkins?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to say, Scott, I support what you've said, because I believe you're seeing these two things can be separate. It doesn't necessarily undercut the vote on the development agreement. When you say, Jack, that the city's just giving it away and they're not getting anything by this realignment of Shellmound Street, I believe that to be inaccurate. Number two, we're going to get a better street, better circulation, but also we are almost creating a parcel which is now not very valuable. It's not really buildable. We're creating a parcel that's going to generate taxes for the future, because there will be a dense development on there, as Mayor Atkins has said. So it's not as though the city is just throwing pennies on the ground for people. This serves the public benefit just as much as it does the developer. So I support you, Scott, and is that a motion for the resolution?
Wait, we have more discussion here.
I'd like to speak.
Yeah.
I also want to speak to the importance of negotiation. I feel Emeryville is growing as a city, and that we are gaining some self-esteem, and we are able to see the value in what we have to offer. And I do see a benefit to moving Shellmound, and I see that benefit as being conferred to the public, but I also see it as being conferred to the developer. And as such, I can't see why we would view this in isolation of the development agreement. I think we can express tonight that, and I think many of us have, that this realignment is beneficial, that the circulation would improve, that the retail situation would improve, that density would improve. I think these are all very good things that if we say we're to go back to the drawing table on a development agreement, these would be part of a negotiation. That's how I would see it.
All right, any other discussion? All right, is there a motion on the
I'd move the resolution.
resolution? Is there a second? There's no second, so it dies for lack of a second. So, thank you all for going through a rather painful process here. Or maybe joyous for some, I don't know. But anyway, this takes us to 7.